Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. I'd love to thank the Vietnamese government for allowing us to come and speak here and talk about our project. My name is Michael Holdmann, as stated. I'm the founder and CEO of PraSaga, and we are a foundation out of Switzerland. We're an open, permissionless, trustless, decentralized layer one blockchain. We're actually a single layer blockchain because we'll never need another layer in order to try to solve the issue of scale. And I'll get into that a little during this presentation. Now, pardon me if I have to turn around and look at where I am on the screen. There's no monitors for the speakers up here. So I don't mean to be rude, but I must. So, SagaChain, what the future is built on. We started this project in September of 2017. We did not start this project to build a native blockchain. We started this project to integrate a blockchain into our high-performance Internet of Things and smart city message bus to break down the walled gardens, decentralize the Internet of Things, and allow the people that own the devices to gain from the revenue of the data that they're producing instead of the large companies, whether it be GE or Google or Amazon or Microsoft, being the ones that are actually getting the revenue off of the data that you're creating. Problem was that we couldn't do it once we looked at the blockchains that were out there. We raised about $850,000 in spring of 2018, and one of our largest funds asked us, what are you going to do about scale? And we didn't understand what they meant, but they then explained to us that blockchains do not scale and will not reach a global level for retail transactions. So this is the 6th decade now that I've been involved in technology. This is the 6th decade that David Bieberman, the co-founder and CTO, has been involved. And this is the 5th decade that Jay Moore has been involved. Jay Moore, most of his career has been spent in video gaming. And he's innovated. The reason that there's independent or indie devs and indie gamers is because of Jay. He, company Garage Games, launched the very first ever open gaming engine. David Bieberman, real quick about him, started coding in 1978. He sat with Vint Cerf and Bob Kahn, who are TCP and IP at NIST, the National Institute for Science and Technology, in the mid-'80s. David Bieberman wrote the protocols that allow TCP and IP to do something other than just address a computer and connect the two servers together. He is directly responsible for Web 1. In 1990, in the 90s, David Bieberman had a company called Routerware. Routerware wrote over 50 protocols known as a high-performance IP stack. It was sold to Wind River in 1999. Because of the work that was done on the protocols in the high-performance IP stack, David Bieberman is directly responsible for Web 2. And now we have this Web 3 focus that's coming out. Well, we'll talk about that in a few. This is our current team. A lot of industry leaders. We come out of industry. We have, whether it be General Electric, Verizon, Avaya, Polycom, out of the FinTech and B of A. We have been involved for decades now within industry, and we have a very deep understanding of the issues that industry is facing. And so we're kind of addressing that here. I love this saying. This is kind of how we've lived all our lives. Albert Einstein, pretty smart guy. You cannot solve problems with the same thinking used when you created them. And that is very, very relevant here within the blockchain industry and the crypto industry. The problem that we found when we went and did our research, and I think we're at 385 pages, 175,000 or so words. The very first 100 pages were dedicated to looking at every single project that was out there, all the layer ones. And found out, no, can't scale. So let's go ahead and how do we create where we can do parallel processing, create blocks in parallel because that's the only way we're going to be able to scale. Wrote 4 patents on it in early 2019, and then looked at smart contracts. And that was the aha moment. That's where this comes in to play, this quote. Smart contracts are the single reason a blockchain cannot scale. A smart contract cannot be moved from one shard to another shard, meaning that now the smart contract is serialized and all the accounts that are on that smart contract have to be on the same shard. What this means then is your blockchain is only going to be as fast as the slowest shard on your blockchain. Where this runs into issue, now everybody's trying to fix, oh, we have TPS. That's great, you can do transaction per second. But sometimes it takes me hours or a day to actually settle a debt on the blockchain. And that's where the problem is. You can't do retail acceptable, and we're hoping that 15 seconds, you'll sit at a convenience store and wait 15 seconds to purchase your Coke. That's kind of the ultimate goal here. How do we get to a retail acceptable settlement level so the money is actually transferred from one account to another? So this kind of went along and with, we have to, first of all, reimagine, rethink, and then reinvent everything that the blockchain is. First of all, reimagine a global economic equality. What we're looking at here is there's a lot of brilliance. There's a lot of people out there that have great ideas, whether they be in the rainforests of Indonesia or South America, in the rural areas here in Vietnam, in the jungles in Africa, or the plains, or the ice plains up in Siberia. But they don't have access to a global economy. They don't have access to a fair method of exchange that doesn't beat them up when they go ahead and have to exchange in a foreign currency and such. So how can we get past that? How can we get those intermediaries to out of there, basically, and work with a global exchange method so that it's fair and accessible to everybody? So rethink. How do we make the world a better place? How do we look at those things? And we'll talk about this planet also. How do we look at creating a much more equitable planet? How do we look at creating a planet that can have a monetary system that actually allows allows a lower carbon footprint than the current financial systems that we have out there? I know one of the big arguments within the crypto industry is the difference between proof of stake and proof of work, saying that proof of work takes a lot more cost or a lot more energy in order to do. Well, we shouldn't be comparing between those two consensus models. In fact, on our chain, we use both. It is a hybrid. It's a proof of stake and a proof of work. What we should be comparing to is the global financial system. What is the carbon footprint of the global financial system, for instance, compared to Bitcoin? Because Bitcoin is the biggest issuer out there that they have the problem with, they always try to compare to. So that's another thing that we had to look at. Now, reinvent. Doing good for the world, not just producing goods for the world. How do we create a philanthropic society? How do we create all of those countries, those regions that are forgotten about by the central banks? How do we create a way for everybody to participate? Again, we're losing a lot of innovation because we're not accessing all of the brain power that's out here in the world. So this is an interesting thing. And two of the people that were on that slide were economists. This is something that the central banks have always tried to convince us of. And that is that the value of an economy is not a reflection of its money. That's what they want us to think. The value of money is a reflection of the economy. The strength of a government or of a country is not within the value of their dollar or their currency. It's within the productivity of their nation, of their citizens, their natural resources. And so how do we get to a point where we have the ability for sovereign nations to have full control over and understand their their gross domestic product, their productivity, have the ability to regulatory efficiencies and transparency, yet privately, but still participating within a global ecosystem. And that's another thing that we've worked on here. So, revolutionizing industry. This is the first thing that we're going after. Hester Peirce, who's a commissioner on the Security and Exchange Commission in the United States, we had a call with her, and after we went over in a little detail about what we do and how we're working with our blockchain, we can actually publicly quote her, and she called this the TSA pre-check of the regulatory use of blockchain. We are an account-based system. We've taken the same underlying technology that was introduced in 1972, by the way, by Xerox PARC, which is Palo Alto Research Center, that is used in 6 other projects right now, or products. Those products are Windows, Linux, Mac OS X, iOS, and Android. And it's taking that same underlying foundational architecture and implementing it onto the blockchain. That's how we eliminated smart contracts and moved into a world of smart assets, where your account you have, and I'll talk about a minute in your identification number and such, your account and all your assets are a subset of that in that account. You can actually move possession of an asset, and an asset can be anything in our world. I don't care if it's a wiper blade for a car, I don't care if it's a car itself with 1 million parts and having full composability to see all the way down to the raw equipment manufacturer, every single certificate that proves that that part can be in the vehicle, or whether it be in the fintech or anywhere. We don't care what that object is. It can be certificates proving your KYC AML, proving that you have the right to transact legally, that you're in full compliance regulatory with any nation in the world. And if you don't have the right to legally transact in that nation, that you're not allowed to. And that's something that we reach here with industry. Our first focus is on regulatory industry. Regulatory industry, we're including in supply chain, fintech, research and testing, like in pharmaceuticals and such, and also HR is one that's coming out very highly since our trip here into Vietnam. So this is really a strong focus. We are an infrastructure. This is not everything that can be done. You can absolutely put NFTs on. You can put games on. It's just as we build the team, we have to focus our energies, or our talent in areas that will produce the most. We are a layer 1. We are a foundation. We are a nonprofit. The only revenue that this foundation or this project will ever realize comes from a fee on the transaction fee that's charged. So call it a tax on the transaction fee. In order to do that, we need high velocity transactions, a lot of transactions. Supply chain, $15 trillion a year is spent on supply chain. That's a lot of transactions. And that creates a good base in order for us to fund the global operations, do our philanthropic, and then the final thing, and that the economists are here to do, is create a mechanism where we can dynamically burn or remove money supply or coins from the economy. The ultimate goal here is to create a zero inflation and zero deflation over rate of velocity, transaction velocity on the chain. And what this will do, it will protect or it will stabilize the purchasing power of the coin. And that's really the ultimate goal. How do we create a digital asset that allows you to accept for payment one day a coin with the full trust that the next day when you go to buy something with it, it will hold the same value. And that's what the ultimate goal here is to do and to deliver to the world. So, individual sovereignty. Now we'll get into this whole ID thing. The way that this works, first of all, you cannot have a centralized system that's producing numbers, because centralized systems can be manipulated. In our case, every single person in the world, all 8 billion plus, whatever the number is now, every entity in the world, and every single product that's ever produced in the world will be assigned a 256-bit string of alphanumeric random numbers. Will not be repeated for billions of years. So it will last your lifetime. It will last a company's lifetime. If we need to expand the namespace, then we go ahead and add another character to that. 257, we've just doubled the namespace in there. So now we can be assured that it absolutely won't. So you have, all your life, a single ID, and that ID, every single asset that you own is a subset of that ID, so you can prove that it's yours, you know that it's yours, it's immutable, and it can't be moved anywhere. So you have full control over your individual sovereignty. All your assets should be in yours, not in somebody else's or custodial in somebody else's. So our logo, it looks like 2 infinity symbols. It's actually 4 P's, and it stands for purpose, people, planet, and philanthropy. And that is the underlying mission for this organization. So, planning for purpose, you know, one of the things that I always say, you cannot change the world if your only interest is in changing your life. There's got to be a higher purpose to why we're here. We have a short time on this earth. There's a lot of people out here. Let's kind of work together. Let's try to create a better world, not just for us in the developed countries, but for those in the underdeveloped countries as well. How do we bring them into the fold? Again, cure for cancer could be out there somewhere, but we're not accessing the mind power that actually knows how to do that because we're not giving them access to us. And that's something that we have to do. So, PraSaga, it's a project that's being given to the world. This is for you. We've created most of the technology that you use today. We've been involved in almost every single innovation that has happened over the past 4 decades. One of us from the team has. And we're kind of taking all that and putting it together. Again, open, permissionless, trustless, decentralized. We're here to offer this technology to you. We're here to offer you a way to have a fair, equitable method of exchange. And by the way, let me just tout the individuals that are responsible on the economic side. Stephen Moore is our chief economist. He's a budget policy expert. He'll be setting up the transaction and the budgets for the 3 buckets that we are going to use the revenue for. Again, that's at the global operations, the Philanthropic fund, because you know, one of the things that Satoshi Nakamoto wanted to do was make this a platform, Bitcoin a platform to do person-to-person transfer of money. That's one thing that didn't happen. We've had a lot of speculators take over. Wall Street moved in. You had Saylor and Novogratz and all these billionaires that came in and started making this a strategic, a volatile asset instead of being what it was intentionally meant for. And that's something that we're really trying to get to. Lawrence White is a professor at George Mason. And he is a money policy expert and a banking expert. Got his degree from UCLA in 1982. He has architected currencies for governments in the fiat world over the past 4 decades. He's the one that's actually writing the algorithms that will stabilize the purchasing power of this coin. And again, this is something that we're giving. Now, we are community run. It's a, Switzerland, when we formed the foundation, they asked me, tell us about your governance. And I said, well, you tell us about yours. And the Swiss governance is nothing can be enacted upon unless it's voted by majority of the citizens of Switzerland. And they said, well, gosh darn it, we are Switzerland on the blockchain. And they kind of rubber stamped our foundation because of that. It's got to be plenary vote. Nothing gets enacted upon the blockchain unless there's plenary vote. Now the problem with that, and that's something that Jay and I and Dave and the rest of the team have been trying to grapple with, everything that we're doing here can be changed in one day with a simple vote. Everybody can go, no, we don't want a global currency. We want to have a high speculative asset. We want to go up 10,000x in one day, and they can vote that in. And that's the hardest thing coming out of, there was 21 startups between the three co-founders with 8 exits over the past 3 decades. So it's kind of hard to grapple, but that's something that we've had to work on for the past 4 years. So that is my presentation. I don't know if I took up the whole 20 minutes or not. I don't have the timer, but I want to thank everybody for listening. I do have to state, we do have a private sale going on right now. We're $5 million into the $21 million round. It is we're looking for validators and miners because we are POS and POW, so node operators, in order to join us in our testnet phase. We're going to have 1,000 nodes in testnet. It's 100,000 minimum with a 3 million maximum. And what it'll do is allow you to go ahead and produce blocks and mint coin. We're looking to mint 8.1 billion token or coin during that testnet period. Other nodes no other node operators will be allowed on until after mainnet starts. So it is only in testnet. You get 4 nodes per 100,000, so it's 25,000 a node, but it is 100,000 minimum. Then you can go into the 25,000 minimum. It's a very aggressive revenue and focus. There is a 12-month lock on it, but during that 12 months, you're earning between an APR of 155% month 1 with a declining curve to 55% in month 12. And then that's when the original purchase or stake will get released to you. So we would love to have participation in that. We are looking for developers. One of the things that the other panel mentioned was the lack of developers that we have out here. And we believe that absolutely 100% strongly. So what we did is we went ahead and used Python for our programming language. So instead of a small pool of Solidity or Haskell or Rust developers, why not use an ocean full of Python developers? The idea for consumer adoption and for adoption is ease of use and ease of access. It's very, very expensive right now for an enterprise to go out and create an application because of the cost for the Solidity developers. So we did release our syntax. It's online, and you can ask. Jay Moore is right here. He's the co-founder and CMO. Stuart Worrell is president of the Collabs. The Collabs is where we will be engaging with enterprises and developers. We're interested in talking to other accelerators and incubators. We will have a venture studio fund within there for grants and equity. And then Jacob Holdmann is here, and he is the director of token relations for anything on investment. And Corky Bizjack heads chief revenue officer, and he's in charge of all the revenue and such that comes in. So channel partners, academia, and such like that. Very interested in talking to you all. And thank you. I hope you have a fantastic day.